So team growth is it's an important aspect of Scrum teams and Agile teams in general. And Agile managers are oftentimes in a very special position to help these teams grow, growing in their ability to deliver, growing in their skill set. And so, yeah, let's talk a little bit about ways that an Agile manager can help a team grow and help a team evolve.
There's a way, Rob, that I think that agile managers can help, and that is to encourage self-management within the teams. But let me first stop and recognize that for many managers stepping into this, that can be a scary proposition. Self-management. I am so used to managing things for them. How do you start handing over the keys? And so this isn't done with a reckless abandon of just like, here, do all the things. I'm told you're supposed to self manage. That's what agile managers do. But it is a transition. Oftentimes, it's a migration from old schools of thinking to more modern ways of thinking. And it has to be set first with expectations. What does this look like? And why are we doing the work? So we got to have those goals and understanding for what the purpose is so that teams can self-manage under those vision and alignment. If we don't
Yeah.
understand the purpose of the business or the strategies or what it is that's expected from the product team or for the individuals, we're going to have a difficult time handing over those self-management responsibilities. But here's a benefit. Once you start handing over some of those responsibilities, now the team becomes accountable as they own. They begin to own their own work. They own what they do, how they do it, when they do it. And inherently, you have this intrinsic accountability that's embedded into the team as a result of those steps. So, as managers begin to hand over that self management responsibility, along comes other intrinsic motivators like autonomy, huge. And then here's the last aspect, I think, of self management. Anything that is going to self propagate or become a self managing entity has to learn how to grow in and of itself. So, in order for a team to be successful at self management, you can't just give them the keys and not expect them to fail along the way and learn. The only way we grow is if there's an allowance for a little bit of failure so we can improve upon improve upon some of those interactions and experiences. So classic examples, you've got your Kaizen events. You also have, say, like your Scrum, your sprint retrospectives in Scrum, where we have opportunities to reflect on what we've done before, how we can improve in the future, and we make legitimate steps towards continuous improvement. So those are three key aspects, in my opinion, that can really foster and help towards team growth is in self-management there.
I couldn't agree more, Greg. I think the self-management is really important. I also think, focusing on team dynamics, making sure that in our last video where we defined what an agile manager is, and if you haven't watched it, you really should. Rob talked quite a bit about how you don't force something in your garden to grow. A gardener cultivates an environment in which a team can grow. And so in the same way, I think an agile manager can't force a team to have positive team dynamics, but an agile manager can certainly do a lot to foster an environment where a team can be very dynamic and collaborate. Fostering a culture of collaboration where collaboration is not just, sort of encouraged or given lip service, but like, no, this is the way we work. Making sure that's a value that's communicated.
Completely, completely. And let's not forget technical skills and sort of product development skills. So basically, you've got these managers and they're working with these agile teams or even scrum teams. And sometimes they start off really immature, and sometimes you get lucky and you got a pretty well-oiled machine for a team going, and you just work with them. But you got to look for some things. Do they have a clear vision? Do they have a clear understanding of what it is that they're doing? What work are they doing? Because when you don't have a clear vision or at least a clear sense of purpose, you often make trade-offs on the engineering side that are inappropriate. So if I know that the purpose is to save the company money by reducing, I don't know, the number of costs or the cost per click of something, if the work that I'm doing actually increase the number of clicks that a user is making, that's going to go against the company goals, even if the requirements ask me to do so. So don't just look at the requirements. We gotta understand the vision. We gotta understand the purpose. The Scrum team has to understand the vision and purpose. Agile teams in generic need to understand vision and purpose in order to do the best job they can with minimal wasted efforts. And then making sure that they have the necessary resources is extremely important too. And don't cheap out here. It's very common for people to think, oh man, I can't spend $1,000 on a piece of software for a developer. But wait a minute, do the math here. If it's going to save them 100 hours of labor, say in the first year, I think this is a no-brainer. I've seen situations where developers had to spend a lot more time developing software because early on in the process, hardware was chosen that was more difficult to program, and they weren't looking at this holistically. So save a few bucks here, spend a few thousand over there. That's not really good economics in any organization. And then here's another topic to kind of hit on that we actually talked about in the last video is it's about leading by example. So as a manager, you really want to demonstrate the right behaviors and attitudes if you want your Agile and Scrum teams to be successful. And that includes creating a culture of accountability, respect, continuous improvement, technical excellence, focusing on quality, focusing on lean product development techniques that reduce waste at all steps of the process. You've got a lot on your plate here if you want to help a team really be successful, but these are all really important ways.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that so many things can go overlooked with an agile manager when they think I'm just here to push people around and tell them what to do, but it's really more complex than that in creating that environment. And I think our viewers, if you've seen ways that agile managers have contributed positively to your team growth, throw them in the comments. We'd like to see what you have seen and which reasons that or ideas that we've mentioned really resonate with you. So throw those in the comments, and we'll see you next time.